because I think that it is necessary for us to give sports due attention. I believe that we are probably seeing in St. Vincent and Grenadines the movement towards a period where there's going to be greater emphasis on sports, where there's going to be great success in sports, and it will come as a result of investment from many different angles. Investment through the framework of government, investment through the sporting organizations which exist, investment from private entities and so on. The question was asked of if we are taking sports seriously, and I think that there's some, you were saying that it was being indirectly answered to some extent, but I think that there is some indication that we are definitely moving in the right direction. For instance, it is fair to say that the athletics track in Diamond is a positive development, and is a positive development which would yield dividends. We see, for instance, because we take the broad framework, we see in sports that we have a local person being on the West Indies cricket team at this moment as well, and being basically the leader in the bowling attack in the form of Obed McCoy. In fact, he has the most wickets in 2020 cricket for the year so far, ahead of even the individual who is ranked number one in 2020 cricket. And we have another Vincentian who is not on the team, not in the outfit at this moment, Kesrick Williams, who again, over an extended period of time, has been among the wickets, and he's probably spending some time refining his craft.
But I mean, touching on the Obed story, and all his accomplishments now. What do we need to? What matters me most is what are we doing to ensure that there are a few more Obed McCoys in the near future?
Well, the point is the system produced Obed McCoy. You know, he didn't fall from the sky. He didn't just have a bundle of talent and, by happenstance or by chance is able to make a berth on the West Indies cricket team. The system produced Kesrick Williams as well. The system has in the past produced other cricketers who went on to play West Indies cricket, and we could go as far back as even Winston Davis and Michael Finley. The question that we ask ourselves is whether or not there are persons who may have talent as well, but they're not getting quite the same opportunity for whatever reason. And one of the things I've listened to recently is a presentation by Malcolm Gladwell, a fairly well-established author. He has given us quite some important contributions to the literature, and he was talking about the capitalization rate. He was talking about it in relation to NFL players in the United States of America, and he singled out, he spoke about several different factors which contributed to persons not being able to achieve their potential. And one of those factors is poverty. The main factor, in fact, is poverty. So what we have to ask ourselves is if the framework that we have in place right now allows a young person with talent to overcome circumstances of poverty, to achieve their potential, to make it to the West Indies cricket team, to perhaps make it to the national football team. Because one of the things that we have, and one of the things we have to be thinking about as well, is when we're going to have a Vincentian who could play in club football, when we're going to have a Vincentian who is in the Champions League and who is flying our banner that high. So we have to assess these things and make sure that poverty or issues of attitude or issues of absurdity don't prevent them from progressing. And there's some simple things which could prevent them from progressing, but I'm sure that this is not necessarily the time for us to
But as you mentioned poverty, maybe we can go
start there.
Do you think that you said one of the major things or one of the major hindrances for persons progressing and becoming really successful in sports is poverty? What is in place now, the frameworks that are in place, do you think they are sufficient to help to alleviate that problem?
Well, yeah, I think so, by and large. I mean, and I'm talking as somebody who has come through in particular, cricket development system in St. Vincent and Grenadines. I know that through cricket, I was exposed to Vincentians from all walks of life. And I believe it's fair to say that once there was the ability, the opportunity was fairly accessible for them, and the opportunity not just to play cricket, but to be a part of a national team, to have experience and exposure overseas in different countries, to travel to Grenada, to Trinidad and Tobago, to Guyana, and I'm talking about in my own experience, to get cricket, to play cricket, which then sort of gives them the impetus to go that step further. Surely in cricket, I don't see it as a major problem. You have to ask yourself as well about coaching systems. I think that we benefited from an upsurge in the expression of athletic talent because we may have recalibrated somewhat our coach training systems and so on, and put in place some additional infrastructure. So I'm not really in a position to comment on the extent to which poverty might be limiting in some areas the full expression of sporting talent. But in general, I think that the record of the government has been one which is concerned about the elimination of poverty, the reduction of poverty, and by extension, the lack of opportunities that might be associated with it.
Okay, the reduction of poverty. I want to go there because there might have been arguments, especially in the run up to general elections last year, right, for and against, where we at, where we're not at. There was the whole back and forth about the poverty assessment report. Some claim that it was completed, some that it wasn't completed. But whichever side of the fence you stood, poverty became a major issue, and I think it was propelled even further with the impact of COVID. Right, we saw it like staring us dead in the face, right, and by even further with the eruption of the Lasso Fred volcano, right. I'm gonna share something from what Major Sinclair Leacock said, and I would like for you to respond to this as it relates to poverty here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, for some it is a reality. Some people are still in denial. I think it is here. It does exist here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we're in a bad state as it relates to poverty. That's my personal view from my own experience on what I've seen throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? Especially after the Lasso Fred volcanic eruption. Major Leacock says, poverty here is a crime and a sin, which needs to be addressed. That's, right? Let me see. It went down further. He said, high degrees of poverty in this country undermines our democracy. He said we have a lot of poverty because the country is not producing goods and services, and based on the figures relative to poverty, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is over 60% poor.
Well, first of all, I must make the point up front that Sinclair Leacock is not really the authority on poverty in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think that...
Why there is even an authority on poverty?
No, well, I'm just saying that his words in terms of the extent of poverty and the problem of poverty is not something that I am going to take up and run with. I mean, I might see different
You think
reports.
it's embellished?
Well, he is an opposition politician in the country, without saying more on it. But, we had poverty reports which showed a dramatic reduction in poverty. In fact, we showed the reports in the interval, I think it was between 1998 and 2008, they showed that over 20,000 people in this country were taken out of extreme poverty. It showed that the general level of poverty was reduced. That is a trend in a downward direction. I think it is, and that is, even if you want to talk about population trends and issues and so on, you're going to consult the census. If you want to talk about poverty, you're going to consult poverty reports. You're not going to consult what Sinclair Leacock says about
but
it.
based on is it even completed as yet?
Well, the status of the most recent poverty assessment is, I don't think there's clarity about the status, but I think that we owe it to ourselves. I mean, whatever we might think and perceive anecdotally, and this is not denying that it is an issue to be addressed nationally, and that it is an important yardstick by which the performance of our government must be measured. We have to make sure that we rely on official information in respect of the current state of our country, the current economic state of our country, in respect of questions like poverty, in respect of questions like unemployment. And those reports and that information is available and maybe accessible through a number of reports. We have, for instance, the World Bank, which might provide information from time to time. We have from time to time Article 4 consultation reports by the International Monetary Fund. We might have other reports on point. And I think that we could maybe do a survey of some of the relevant documents and do a state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines kind of
An
assessment.
independent survey.
Well, an analysis.
But based
Of
on that,
independent
based on that
independent
report,
reports, yeah.
based on that report, there's some staggering figures that came out that pointed to high levels of poverty here. Look, whether completed or not, right? Okay, so
Well,
maybe it's not completed, but why isn't it completed?
But I don't know the status of the report. What I know is that there is not a completed report, and therefore there's no basis for us to make the commentary. And I'm not going to.
So
prevent-
then what else do we have that we can use to measure the extent of poverty then?
Well,
Do we go with real life situations?
Well, we get a report on that matter done. What I think is important for us to look at, because you're talking about the fact that our position, our situation has been to a significant degree exaggerated or amplified as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And I believe that is something that we need to diligently seek to keep under control. And not only the coronavirus pandemic, but also the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. These are setbacks to our march forward and to our development and to employment in this country and to economic opportunity and to travel and to our way of life that we have to try to address as best as possible in the circumstances.
Question though, what do you mean exaggerated? These are circumstances that are exaggerated because of COVID-19.
Well, by exaggerated here, I really mean amplified or aggravated.
What further impacted, I think COVID only highlighted what already was.
No, I mean, come on. I don't think you really believe that. I think you must.
What already was.
I think you.
COVID just further impacted.
Well, I'm sure that you actually really think that COVID aggravated the situation.
To some
I
extent.
think
Well,
for some,
I mean,
for
is
some
fair.
people it was a
COVID
little
surely
bad.
prevented persons from having the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
kind of employment opportunities
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
would have
yeah.
had before. COVID surely impacted upon
Yes,
the ability of
yes.
a hotel to employ
Yes.
persons and income
Yes. That's
generation in
why I
hotels.
said further impacted
No, well,
situations were there before.
Well, a situation will always be there before. You know, but
So is it we accept it or we remain in
well,
denial?
it
I
could
feel
have,
like
it could have
both
been
of
a
you are
good.
correct.
It could have been a good situation. It could have been a good situation that
Yeah.
existed before,
Uh-huh.
And then it
that
got
situation
bad.
was
It could have been a bad
You know,
situation.
So it could also could have been a bad
Right,
situation that got worse.
so it is not for us to determine what type of situation existed before.
You see
But
why
what
we
I'm
need to
saying,
complete the report.
there's surely references that could be made to
Yes,
official
yes,
publications.
yes, yes.
With or without that specific report, to which I mean, I don't ascribe any significance at all. With or without that, there are other documents that we could look at to determine how St. Vincent and the Grenadines is doing on a whole set of metrics,
Okay.
including the metrics of poverty reduction, including the metrics of employment, including the metric of the Human Development Index, and we have made progress in
Okay.
many of those areas.
But COVID kind of come and just
And we get
make
a
things a little worse now.
setback from COVID.
And then
we get a
volcano.
setback from the volcano. We were literally blown off course by that kind of development.
No pun
but
intended, yes.
when the going gets tough, the tough simply has to get going.
Where would you put us in terms of measuring the extent of poverty that exists in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? So off of your own analysis, where would you put it?
Well, I don't think that I'm in a position to comment.
Well, you can watch around the
On it,
communities
but-
and see, just make a judgment
I mean, but
based on that.
scientifically speaking,
No,
if
I-
you have
I-
not gone to the length and breadth of SVG, I mean, I
No,
could see how you could
As
see.
a statistician, I am now going to venture to make hypothetical comments about
Scientifically
something,
speaking.
about something so important. What
Yeah.
I would say is that the definitive assessments that we have in hand showed a downward trajectory.
Okay.
All right.
When? How many years ago?
Well, it is true to say that another report is perhaps due
Overdue.
or overdue.
Correct.
But
Right.
in the sense of a specific study on that topic, but we have had publications from
So we had other
entities, we've had
references.
other references that we could use to have an idea of where things are in
Okay.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
All right. It's a short morning, and
We
one of
open
the
up the
things
lines. We open up the lines.
you can call us now 8 o'clock across SVG.
One
All
or two.
right.
One or
We'll
two.
take 1 or 2 calls and questions. But look, since the elections, there were certain videos. There were videos that were circulating, images of post-election results. And I think for the most part, we can safely say that you were not pleased with the results of the last general elections, right? I just want to know, how has it been since the last elections?
But it's clear that the results weren't ideal for me and for
Yeah.
us in the constituency. It's obvious that we...
Big
we-
man thing, and shall I tell you, man?
It's obvious that we pursued a different outcome. But the truth is, if you look at the election results and you actually look below the surface, you'd see that we still, in the context of the elections in East Kingstown, give a good account of ourselves. I mean, the truth is, the seat is not a seat that has been won by the Unity Labour Party since 1984. So we are not facing a battle that is easy. It is a tough political assignment, but it is an
But in
assignment.
before this recent one, in previous elections, you made some strides
So
in
we-
terms of gaining more supporters. That wasn't the case this time around. What happened?
Precisely, but you see, we face the general circumstances of the elections. I mean, in these elections, for instance, in 12 constituencies, there was a swing against the ULP of between 1.6% to 6.1%. In 12 constituencies.
Okay.
In East Kingston, the swing was only 0.8%.
So you would say the swing was really against the ULP and not so much Luke.
Well, clearly, if you look at the factors that may have impact or may have an impact on the results of the election, you go in with the question of the situation or the circumstances facing the party, broadly speaking. And you know, in the situation where I'm running in a seat that has not been won by Labour since.
But you were
19
more confident this time around that you were gonna win, Luke. That must have been based on something.
Well-
So what happened?
Well, the truth is, we did our
But if he
work
wasn't
diligently.
confident, fugitive, someone would have been
More confident. More confident.
And sometimes, if you're going to run a 100-meter race, you're not going to be able to tell the kind of headwind that you might be running into, you know. But you just run your race, and moreover, East Kingstown, and I said you have to assess the performance in the context of the elections. East Kingstown is one of only 3 constituencies in which the ULP got more votes than the last election. There was North Leeward, there was Central Leeward, and then there was East Kingstown. All these facts show that we performed well in the context of the elections. Certainly, it's not the ideal result for us, and certainly there are areas for improvement, but we consider all of these things within the wider
I
picture.
am still not getting what happened because even with your opponent, you were certain that he would have done far worse than his predecessor. I mean, even referring to him as a Johnny come lately. I mean, that I think was a boost of confidence that based on his lack of experience as it relates to politics and even running as a candidate in East Kingston, you had the advantage. That was not the case.
Well,
What happened?
I just pointed to some important
Yeah, I
points
know,
about
I
the
know,
election.
I know. But what happened in East Kingston specifically?
So I spoke about some important points about the election. I spoke about the fact that East Kingston is a seat that has not been won by the Unity Labour Party.
It was
since
hard. It was hard
1984.
going in.
So
but you knew this all along. No?
exactly, and no, I spoke a good talk, and you know the point is that I call things or I discuss things as I see them in the circumstances. Now, I know that you're not here suggesting that results in, for instance, if you go to North Central Windward as a
Right.
as a NDP candidate, I mean, you're going to be defeated. You're not going to be defeated because you are a bad candidate or because you haven't worked hard or anything like that. It's the constituency. If you go to the Northern Grenadines as a UNP candidate, you're going to be defeated.
You're gonna lick
I mean, I wouldn't put any other constituency in those categories. But the point is, and to be sure, East Kingston is not in any of those extremes, but the political history shows that it is not a simple assignment for a Labour Party
We'll
candidate.
never get
All
that.
right.
So
Come on, but,
but-
you would not expect for him to be as a politician, the representative of the Unity Labour Party
give
to
up.
be. Oh yeah. You know,
Of
this
course,
is
I'm already
this
concerned.
is a red hat to wear, you know, so I'm just gonna be like, yeah, whatever.
and the truth is,
Half-hearted, you know?
we contended hard for victory. We
Yes.
were disappointed with the results,
Yeah.
but we assessed the results that
Right,
came.
right.
Yeah.
And we,
How many-
and
how
we came
many-
to an understanding
That-
of what may have happened. And I'm saying that in the context of the elections, we look at the fact that we were able to continue to move in the right direction by increasing the number of votes,
Okay.
whereas in 13 constituencies, there was significant declines as something significant.
Right, right,
When
right.
you are looking at performance between elections, you're not so much simply looking at what the ultimate margin of victory might be. You're not looking at what ultimately the outcome of the
result
election
was,
is and
right,
so on.
right.
You are looking at how you compared in contrast or in comparison
And
to
I
all
agree.
your
And I
to all your fights.
I agree.
So
good
I
stuff,
agree.
good stuff.
those are the things which have guided our assessment, and we simply move on with our work. And look,
Right.
I wanted
Speaking
to make
of moving on with the work, I see you've been doing quite a lot in East Kingston. And if you're just looking at photographs alone, you would think that you are the area representative.
well, you make an important point there, and the truth is, I wanted to share with you something which I gathered from a presentation.
Hold
I
on,
wrote.
before you go further, what's the important point? You look like the area representative versus the actual area representative, or?
Well,
what
no,
is
you
it
make an
before?
important point about the fact that we are continuing with our work in the constituency.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I wanted to ask about that before you go to your point, right? I think, and I was saddened, you know, upon hearing the reports that followed, that you might have been throwing in the towel and moving on to something else, going off to study
Mhm.
and all of that, and sometime later on probably come back and represent. And I was hoping that that was not the case, because I mean, I would throw some jabs at time, but I still believe you have a bright future in politics, and more so even representing East Kingston and even further, going right up to the very top. I am confident in you as a politician, Luke. Right? I've seen the works that you've been doing over the years, and you will continue to do. I know Luke don't give up that easily. That is a fact. Right? So I was somewhat saddened hearing that you might have been throwing in towel. Where are we with that?
Well, you don't have to be saddened by the news that I'm going away to study, because in fact,
No, not the going away to study part. Of course, that's always good.
Your future
The-
in politics.
The giving up on the candidacy.
well, you see, I think you alluded to it, and that's the fact that I'm not somebody that gives up on anything. And I was going to say that I was listening to a presentation that Oprah Winfrey made at a Harvard commencement ceremony on one occasion. I think it was in 2013. And she made this point, and I want to quote it so I could get it precisely. She said that no matter what challenges or setbacks or disappointments you may encounter along the way, you would find true success and happiness by pursuing what you considered to be, what Oprah considered to be the only goal in life: to fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being. You have to max out your humanity by using your energy to lift yourself up and your family and the people around you. And she went on to quote, which I think is the most important part, a theologian by the name of Howard Thurman, an American theologian, who said, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And the truth is, I have had my setbacks, in terms of elections and otherwise, but I'm not going to allow that to prevent me from doing what makes me come alive.
Nice.
And what makes me come alive is knowing the joy that I could bring to the heart of a family in Longwall when they saw all that they worked for their life for go up in flames, and within 6 months we could rebuild a house.
Yes.
What gives me joy is that we didn't even stop there. Very soon, when we were about completing that project, we heard about another similar incident in Rockies in Mountain Cabbage. A young guy from the Cozier family. He had a similar setback. His house went up in flames. He's also dealing with health challenges and so on. And I was saying, "Whoo boy, we get through this first project, and I wasn't even anticipating going further. But we took upon ourselves the challenge of dealing with that issue again. And within a month or so from the commencement of that project, we were able to restore completely his house. So I am alive.
So it is official to say that Luke is not throwing any towel.
Well, I could never throw in the towel from the pursuit, as Oprah says, of the only goal in life.
Good.
Doing what makes you come alive. And the truth is, with respect to politics, to me, politics is a means to an end. Politics is a platform that you could use to make an impact on people's lives. You could use it as an avenue to help persons to employment. You could use it as an avenue to help address some of the national issues. You could use it as an avenue to contribute to the upliftment in sports. You could use it as an avenue to help people get the same houses and so on and have it restored. But it is not the only avenue.
No.
And
Because
we
it
have
can be used to exploit people as well.
well, people use politics and use anything for whatever their own objectives might be.
Correct.
But in
That
addition,
ain't Luke, though. That's
not me. That's not myself.
That's not Luke.
And the truth is, what we could use politics to do, we could also use other mechanisms to
Yes,
do.
you can.
Because running in parallel with the work that I've done, politically speaking, is the work that I do through my other organizations. For instance, I have the Light Hill Foundation, which dates back to 2008, when fresh out of university, we decided we wanted to do something for our country and launched a lecture series. It was first named 2x2. We did a lecture series. We did books on entrepreneurs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We did many projects in the community. And today, we are building houses for people. That Light Hill Foundation is now going to work in tandem with a new entity that we have created, Impact. The name Impact, well, first of all, it tells you what we want to do. We want to make an impact. I mean, even
Impact,
Alkaline sing a song about making an impact. So, and the Impact stands for International Movement for Progressive Action. So we are about progressive action, and we're not about progressive action in a narrow way. We are about progressive action on an international scale. So we have action in housing, and I must tell you, I mean, one of the grand visions that I have for Impact in our organizations, quite apart from what we will do through politics, because politics has its place, Parliament has its place, it is where laws are made, it's where you could also have an impact incidentally. But on top of that, and on top of what we do through that mechanism or framework, one of the grander things that we would like to do through Impact is help to continue in the first place with supporting education through scholarships and grants and so on. I actually want to build schools. I want to build my own schools as well. In St. Vincent and Grenadines.
The summer program.
It would be an extension of the summer program, because that is sort of the initial seed of the idea to go further. And I'm inspired by along the road of building schools by J.P. Eustace, who is a mentor for me. He was a mentor for my father. He's a man we consider to be worthy of national hero status, and he built schools. And he made his impact, and he did that outside of the framework of any state apparatus or anything of the sort. So whatever we're doing is just about making that impact on people's lives.
We have to go to digital, right? But it just seems to me like perhaps not winning the seat is a blessing in disguise.
Well, I don't know if it's a blessing in disguise as such. I mean, the truth is, it has allowed me to pursue some of my own ideas in a way that I may not have been able to pursue them.
Isn't that a blessing?
Otherwise, it has given me the opportunity as well to go and do the bar. because I was hoping that I would get the chance because I was anticipating, being fully engaged here. I was hoping that I might get the bar to do it by distance or some mechanism that never worked out, but I could get the break now to go away just for a matter of 9
See,
months
of nothing.
and to the bar. And I know that being able to practice law will allow me to perhaps use the framework of my father's practice to do some other things which are important for persons. From my own political experience, I know that law is an important area for representation itself, and it also prepares me even better to contribute to the debates and legislations in Parliament.
Yeah, boy, ambition to the roof and beyond.
Well,
I love it.
You made a statement a while ago. Gonna paraphrase, but Africans, we might ask ourselves the question: what makes good or true or the right politician? And I like that statement you made. What is done outside the parameters of the framework of Parliament and so on. I like that. What is done individually by you to further benefit, further develop, uplift the lives of people within that said community,
regardless of the
outside
outcome.
of the framework of government.
Regardless of the outcome, it sounds to me though
Hold on to that, my bud.
it sounds to me that changing the mindset of a politician, that is what you maybe are attempting to do.
Well, for sure, because we have to find, some persons might think, they didn't win the election and all this loss.
And
we get that too often we've been given that.
Yeah, precisely. But what I want you to recognize is it is obvious, it is clear that I have devoted my whole life to public service. I got in Parliament before I was 30 years old. I contested my first elections as 25. At 25. Right now, I am 35 years old and I already have about 10 years experience in Parliament. I already have experience as a minister. And God's willing, I have a lot of time in the future to continue to see how I could improve the condition of the life of citizens.
Go for it.
At 35.
Go for it. Yeah. So we're gonna go over to the state of emergency mix. We're gonna head there. When we come back, we open up the telephone lines. We facilitate some of your calls. We see some coming in via WhatsApp as well. Luke is on the inside. East Kingston, good morning to you. Let's do this and we come right back.
But the biggest step is the wake-up call on X 104.3 FM.
Yeah.